Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Cat's Bride. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! This is Haji. Ever since she was little, her parents taught her to be kind to others, to be bright and positive, and stay innocent in the face of the world's evils. Basically, to act exactly like a puppy. Which is kind of ironic since her name sounds exactly like the Korean word for puppy. I'm sure anyone would be mad with parents who name them to be like a dog, so you can't blame Haji for feeling the same. Since she's so meek and mild, people think she's a pushover. She doesn't have a lot of friends and often gets bullied at school. She grew up in an orphanage and her adoptive parents used to foster abandoned dogs, so she kind of learned to act like them as she grew up. When she got in trouble, she would roll over and show her belly just like a pup and has a crazy sense of smell. It even got her on the news, which probably didn't help with the whole bullying situation. I mean, seriously, would you want to go on TV to be compared with a dog? Probably not, right? The worst trait Haji inherited from her puppy siblings was her gullibility. The problem is, she's not naturally suspicious, so she hasn't been able to figure out who's been bullying her for the last year. But even with all her misfortunes, Haji tries to keep a positive attitude, true to her canine nature. That's not to say it isn't hard. In art class, the teacher announces a group project. No one wants her in their group, but instead of assigning Haji to work with her classmates, she shoves her next to this boy who completely blanks her. How rude! Why is everyone in this school so mean? First they're throwing sliders at her, and now even the loner kids ignore her? Poor Haji. Their project is to decorate a plaster head, using any materials they like. Some of the girls in her class decide to put makeup on theirs, trying to imitate a puppy-like look. Obviously, someone mentions Haji, because that's literally her brand. But the girls don't take well to the loner getting all the attention. While Haji is working dutifully on her bust, she gets distracted thinking of her dog Happy and drops a paintbrush. When she and her partner lean down to get it, they bump heads. But at least he bothered to help her out, I guess. Unfortunately, the popular girls catch the interaction and immediately accuse them of dating. They start teasing Haji and tell her partner to put on her makeup as a little boyfriend-girlfriend activity. Haji is literally begging this kid to refuse. But then the ringleader slams her hand on the desk and calls him some very rude names, which we can't repeat on this channel. Now that everyone in the class is staring at them, the boy has no choice but to take the makeup while the other girls pin her down. But just as he starts to draw, she yells at them to stop. Finally, Haji has reached her breaking point and decides to be a pushover no longer. So she does what dogs do best. She bites back. No, literally. Haji grabs a nice big chunk out of one of the bully's arms and wriggles free. That's it, girl. You do whatever you have to. That'll teach them not to mess with puppies. The funny thing is, after they basically bullied that guy into putting makeup on her face, Haji actually looks kind of gorgeous. All the boys in class are suddenly talking about how cute she is, which only makes the girls even angrier. They snatch back the kit and are just about to give her a nasty makeover when a pretty girl in the corner of the room pipes up, warning them the teacher is coming back. Now, I don't actually know if she was or wasn't returning, but either way, that girl saved Haji's hide. As it turns out, her name is Hong Minju, and she and Haji used to be friends. Until about a year ago, when Haji deliberately put some distance between them when she started getting bullied, not wanting her friend to catch the same reputation. During PE class, Haji tracks her down by scent to thank Minju for stepping in. Her friend apologizes that she couldn't do more and cheers her up, reminding her there's at least one person who's still on her side. However, that brief shining moment of hope is soon dashed when Haji returns to the class and is pretty much assaulted by flying balls. And no, that's not a euphemism. She gets struck in the face and ends up around the nurse's office with a bloody nose and a bruised elbow. While she's licking her wounds, Haji reminisces on the old days when Minju and her spent all their time together, and her crush, Hyunjun, would come over and tell her how cute she looked. It seemed like she had it all made out. What could have possibly gone so wrong to land her in this situation? Angry at her life, Haji suddenly yells out her frustration, startling a cat that was walking nearby. It's a cute little kitty, so she invites it to come sit in her lap. But apparently, she gives off far too much canine energy to befriend a cat, so it hisses at her and stalks away, perching by the school gates. Returning to class, Haji discovers a big crowd of girls swarming none other than her old crush, Hyunjun. These days, he's the talk of the town and is participating in a national track and field competition on TV soon. He also happens to be the president of the school council. I mean, could this kid be any more perfect? At the council meeting that day, he asks her to take on the admin for a big proposal, since he's too busy with the upcoming competition. Even though she's vice president and that's pretty much her job, the others call her a pushover and accuse her of deliberately playing nice to get his attention. Someone give this poor girl a break! After staying late to clear up from their meeting, Haji finally gets to head home, but just as she's leaving, a mysterious figure pushes her down the stairs. Okay, now this has gone too far. Let me in the comic. I'll sort those bullies out. Fortunately, Youngjun is there to break her fall. Unfortunately, the force of the fall pushes him to the ground, hurting his ankle. Of course, the entire school appears at just the perfect moment to point fingers at Haji, as if she didn't have enough on her plate already. The next day, the popular girls take it upon themselves to punish her, cornering Haji by the lockers. They're convinced she pushed Hyunjun on purpose, so they slap her and stuff a dirty rag in her mouth. They tell her the school star athlete had to be hospitalized and missed out on his chance to be on TV, all because of her. Which is obviously not true, but now everyone believes it, including her. Haji no longer feels safe while walking the halls, knowing that every whisper is about her. Trying to recall the hand that pushed her, she suddenly remembers scenting Minju's perfume. She asks her about it, but doesn't suspect her friend at all. She only wants to know if she saw anything, since she must have been nearby. Oh, Haji, there goes those canine senses, failing you once again. I don't trust that Minju as far as I can throw her. She gets even more suspicious when the nasty popular girls catch them talking in the toilets. Minju tells them Haji thought she pushed her down the stairs, which is so insane. I mean, seriously? Is this girl deaf? Did you not hear her say literally the exact opposite? The bullies seem shocked to find out that she was actually pushed, only they don't actually care about the danger she was in. They tell Haji she should have just rolled down the stairs and bled out, rather than hurt Hyunjin too. Damn, now that's truly evil. Minju manages to shepherd them to the cafeteria, so Haji gets to eat in peace. Well, as much peace as you can get when you're being lethally bullied and the whole school can't stop talking about you. But being alone gives her the chance to think back on something the girls said while they were beating her up by the lockers. They mentioned that there was some kind of incident, and that's why she was being bullied. Poor Haji is desperately racking her brain, trying to think of what she could have possibly done to warrant people basically assaulting her. But her thoughts are interrupted when one of those mean girls starts a rumor that her parents capture and abuse stray dogs before selling them on. Apparently, being beaten and abused and nearly killed, this girl can take, but slandering her parents and puppies is just one step too far. Haji demands the girl apologize for what she said. I'm not exactly sure how she was expecting that to go. What, was she gonna suddenly turn around and say, "You're right, that was out of line"? Well, anyway, the girl responds exactly how you'd expect, by kicking her to the ground and dumping their lunch all over her. Totally humiliated, Haji sprints out of the cafeteria and into the rain. She doesn't know what to do or where to go. She's kind of starting to spiral when she bumps into that odd-eyed cat from PE class, just sitting in the middle of the road. Suddenly, a truck comes screeching toward it, so Haji does the only thing she can think of and dives in front of it. Oh my god, is this finally it? Is this how her story ends after everything? Turns out, no. The moment our heroine touches the cat, she is transported to a very strange place where the floors are gleaming and old-fashioned maids bow to her. Okay, maybe she did die after all. I mean, doesn't that sound a lot like heaven? Haji is probably thinking the same, but then she notices the tall, dark-haired man staring at her with a familiar set of mismatched eyes. She must have been holding on to him pretty tight, because the mysterious stranger suddenly lashes out and scratches her hand. Then he calls her a dirty mongrel, asking how she dares touch him. Is that how he's going to treat the girl who saved his life? What a jerk. Haji is still trying to figure out how she got from the side of the road to a palace, especially since it's surrounded by lakes and mountains and flowers. While she's taking it all in, her horrible host says she smells disgusting, like a dirty rat. Overhearing the butlers talking, Haji learns that her host's name is Master Ko Kyulhan. Though that's about all she's going to be learning, since he tells her to get out of his sight the next second. Kind of unreasonable given he's the one who brought her here. Haji asks what made him so angry, and Kulhan explodes, yelling that he lost track of a major criminal all because of her. Then some guards show up out of nowhere and he orders them to execute her in place of the criminal. What? This guy is absolutely insane. She's taken to a cell and locked up with no food, water, or cell phone to call for help. Although she's escaped from the bullies at school, it seems she's landed somewhere far more dangerous and hostile. She needs to think of an escape plan, and fast. Searching the cell, Haji discovers a huge and very suspicious-looking box. Inside, she finds it full of sand and starts running her hands through it. Oh girl, no. I have a feeling I know what that's for. The door opens and in walks an unfamiliar boy with pink hair dressed in a maid outfit. He hands Haji a disguise, promising to help her escape so long as she keeps quiet and acts fast. And what do you know? The disguise is, of course, another maid outfit. The pink-haired boy adds a bow on top and drags her through the halls until they come to a final corner. All Haji has to do is get to the end of that hallway and sneak out to a pathway in the garden. The boy sends Haji on ahead, promising to distract the guards and meet up with her once the coast is clear. While wandering toward their meeting point, Haji stumbles upon someone laying in the grass. Her first thought is that they must have passed out, but honestly, there's a lot of other reasons a person could be lying down in the shade. She wasn't kidding when she said she was gullible. Haji wakes them up to ask if they're all right. The stranger only opens one eye and pulls her down, using her as his personal teddy bear. Gosh, what is with the people in this place? Does no one have any manners? While she's being snuggled like an overgrown puppy, the guards are getting closer. Haji tries to sneak away, but her cuddle partner tells her it's safe out here. But something tells me the reason the guards won't come is because they don't want to deal with this guy. My damsel in distress sense is really tingling, guys. Haji must be thinking the same because she abruptly gets to her feet, thanking the strange boy for hiding her and running to the meeting point. The pink-haired maid is already waiting for her. Turns out he wants them to escape through a hole in the tree, but it's too small to fit through, so he casually starts digging out the earth with his bare hands. Right, because that's a totally normal thing that people in this world can just do, I guess. Once they can fit through, the boy helps her down, and they're on their way out. Finally, something is going right for Haji, at least for now. After crawling through the long, dark tunnel, Haji and her accomplice emerge at the other end in a beautiful meadow full of flowers. True to her nature, she's immediately delighted and goes running around like a puppy, curious of every little fly and rock. She's still far too innocent for her own good. She seems to think that the castle was some kind of movie set, and this field is a botanical garden. The pink-haired boy has to set her straight, and reveals that they're no longer in the human world. Even worse, she probably won't be able to go back for some time. Though he promises to do everything he can to help her get there. And even though they're complete strangers, I can relate. I mean, look at those puppy dog eyes. Who could help but fall for her? The boy finally introduces herself as Jimin, which, if you know, you know, and changes out of his maid uniform. He reappears in a loose shirt, admitting that the maid outfit was just a disguise so he could get into the castle. It's all very suspicious, especially since the village Jimin has brought her to is literally called Rat Village. Apparently, it's for both rats and mice, while the castle was part of the Cat Kingdom. With me so far? Don't worry. Haji doesn't have a clue what's going on either. Jimin promises to explain more about the animal world in depth, but first, they need food. They arrive in Jimin's family home, where his mother is laying on the bed, clearly pretty sick. They have a simple dinner of sandwiches and cheese. True to the mousy brand, I guess. Jimin lost his father when he was young, and his mother fell ill soon after. She's been fighting for a while, but it seems like she hasn't got long left. But that doesn't mean he's given up. Jimin has been searching for medicine from the human world, hoping it could cure his mother. Wait, is that what Kulhan was after? Is it possible that Jimin could be the criminal he's been looking for? Oh, we're getting into the good stuff now. Jimin wants to retrieve the medicine that Kulhan took, but getting back into the castle will be practically impossible. Traveling between worlds is strictly forbidden. Anyone who does it is immediately a first-class criminal. As the third highest rank in the Cat Kingdom, Prince Kulhan has made it his mission to track him down, no matter the cost, which means Jimin is one of the most wanted people in the kingdom. Oh, I just got it! It's a cat and mouse chase. Kyulhan is Tom and Jimin is Jerry. Did anyone else catch that? No? Well, anyway, because she's too naive for her own good, Haji offers to go back to the cat palace to retrieve the medicine for him. Jimin immediately refuses. After all, this isn't her world. But as we've seen, there's not much waiting for Haji on the other side except bullies and misery. Of course, she misses her parents, but she seems far more invested in helping out her new friend. Okay, I'm not saying the bullies were right, but geez, girl, you trust way too easily. Truly, like a dog, Haji is optimistic about their chances, so the puppy and the mouse team up. But once she's alone in bed, the reality of the situation finally crashes in. So many crazy things have happened in the last 24 hours, and she doesn't know how to take it all in. That night, she falls into a nightmare about the girls waiting for her back at school. And after that, she has another one about the cat prince. When will this puppy ever know peace? By the morning, she's pretty groggy, so Jimin fetches her a giant sunflower to make her feel better. I get the sense this kid has already kind of fallen for her, and Haji is pretty flustered. I mean, a cute boy bringing her flowers? I'd be swooning already. Jimin asks how she's handling everything, and Haji admits that she is struggling to keep up. And you can't exactly blame her. There are cats and mice and kingdoms, but none of them look any different from humans. Although that nasty Kyulhan certainly doesn't act like a human. He practically hissed at her earlier. Jimin heads back inside to look after his mother, kind of just abandoning Haji to her reconnaissance mission. He gives her a map and a list of tips for things to avoid. Literally, the first thing that is on the list is guys with stripes on their faces. So, guess who she bumps into literally seconds after leaving the house? Guys with stripes on their faces. Obviously. They immediately take a liking to her. Since she kind of looks unusual, they want to sell her to some nobles. Great, so they have slavery here too. This world sucks. One of them tries to inspect the merchandise, so Haji kicks them right in the balls. Yes! This is the best thing that's happened so far. I am so ready for Haji's heroine arc. One of the rats is about to strike Haji when she suddenly screams out Prince Kyulhan's name in an act of desperation. And apparently, that works. The people of the rat village must be so terrified of the third kitty in command that even the sound of his name makes them freeze. For once, Haji manages to lie, spinning a story about the prince being obsessed with her. Which is technically true, though he's more obsessed in the lock you up in a cell way and not the shower you with love kind of way. But they don't have to know that. Literally, the entire village falls silent, people scurrying back inside until she's the only one in town. Haji is surprised that just a name can be so powerful. That is, until she turns around and finds a real-life bear looming behind her. Look, I know we had rats and cats, but I don't think the next logical step is just to have a bear walking through town. Haji starts sprinting for her life, like anyone would if there was a grizzly on your tail. She's about to leap over the cliff when the bear reaches out with a very human hand, warning her to watch out. Stumbling on the edge of the precipice, Haji is inches from a very gruesome death. Now might be the perfect time for a very handsome human bear to rescue her from peril. Leaving us on that very literal cliffhanger, the story switches to Kyulhan, who has arrived in the rat village on his hunt for the criminal, aka Jimin. He hears the gossip of the girl who used his name to protect herself against gang members, though the rumors seem to have spiraled out of control. People now think Kyulhan and Haji are engaged and are in an uproar that the younger of the princes is getting married before Kwihan, the white-haired leader of their kingdom. Kyulhan is understandably shocked and forces the full story out of one of the villagers. Meanwhile, my wish has come true. Haji has been rescued from her near-death experience by a gorgeous blue-eyed boy in a cape. Although, now they're both stuck at the bottom of a rocky chasm. Haji, of course, hasn't made the link between the bear and the boy and thinks he just appeared out of nowhere. Luckily, the bear kid managed to call to a friend before they fell, so help is on the way. Is it going to be another hot bear boy? No offense, but if I were Haji, I wouldn't be wasting my time with rats and cats. Bears are where it's at, baby! The boy got injured in their fall, and it looks pretty serious. Haji tries to rip off some fabric for a tourniquet, but he pulls her close and stops her, promising it will take more than a scratch to kill someone like him. Whew! Does anyone else have butterflies? Haji doesn't quite believe him, so when she hears footsteps nearby, she calls out for help. And lo and behold, Prince Ko Kulhan appears, smiling down at his prey from up above. Oh boy, here we go again. Haji's first thought is to jump into the ravine, which I can't blame her. I wouldn't want to deal with that snobby cat anyway. And actually, cats have always hated her, even back in her childhood in the human world. They always used to hiss and scratch at her, even unprovoked. But like a silly pup, she never stopped trying to befriend them because, well, cats are just that cute. At least they are in the real world. Kulhan is neither cute nor a harmless kitty, and now that he's got her trapped once again, Haji is reminded of the danger she's in. Her new friend is also pretty unhappy to see him and tries to hide while the prince jumps down into the chasm. Haji tells him right away that the other boy has no relation to her and needs medical attention right away. Of course, because he's a major douchebag, Kulhan completely ignores the guy literally bleeding out behind her and starts interrogating her about the criminal instead. She plays hardball, but then his attention strays to the boy behind her, who he seems to recognize. The bear guy takes a half second to ask if she can swim before grabbing Haji and jumping down the chasm. Well, at least he asked first. So far, he's more considerate than any of the other boys we've met. Somehow, they swim to safety and even get to a safe house where the bear boy makes her some tea. I'm telling you, this guy is perfect boyfriend material. Oh, and he's dressed her up in another pretty maid costume. Back at the palace, the rumors have already spread to Ko Kulhan, Kulhan's older brother and the ruler of the Cat Kingdom. He heard about Haji pretending to be his fiancé and seems very amused by the whole affair. The prince, however, is not, and now has a major grudge to settle with Haji. Meanwhile, she's blissfully unaware, and she's been telling her life story to her bear boyfriend over a cup of hot tea. Like any reasonable person, he seems concerned that she's decided to side with Jimin, the first-class criminal, especially since that puts her right in Prince Kulhan's firing line. Upon learning her name, the boy says it suits her well. Haji assumes he means because she's like a puppy, but he actually thinks it reflects her determination. You see, Kang Haji also sounds like the Korean word for strong. That's probably the first time our sweet girl has had someone recognize her strength. Is it just me? Or is it really nice to see people acknowledging her? It certainly makes for a nice change from all the times she's been beaten up and shoved. While the bear guy is taking away their cups, he drops one and suddenly starts trembling. It seems he gets troubled by random pains from time to time, so the two of them go out picking these glowing herbs by the light of the moon. Does that count as a date? 'Cause this whole vibe is romantic as heck. When they wander back to the house, the boy explains that it's a place that produces medicine. He's working there as an apothecary under a mentor who is mysteriously absent at the moment. Though I'm sure he won't be for long. Apparently, both student and mentor used to work at the royal palace, which would explain why Kulhan recognized him earlier. He warns her that it will be very difficult to sneak into the palace, let alone steal something from the prince. In fact, it's more like impossible. And he advises her to give it up, especially since she's doing this all for a stranger. But Haji isn't the type to think twice about that sort of thing. She just likes helping people and never thinks too deeply about things. Really, truly like a dog to her very core. Enamored with her kind heart, Haji's companion decides to help her. Once they've collected enough of the glowing herb, they head back to the apothecary, where he offers her a room for the night. Because she's so pure-hearted, Haji does have some hang-ups about staying in the same house as him, but come on, get a grip, girl! It's not every day you come across a gorgeous man who wants to take care of you. If it were me, I'd jump straight on that invitation. And thankfully, she does. Haji feels responsible for his injury, so she promises to help him with his work while he recovers. But as soon as they return, she starts to second-guess her offer. A huge explosion sounds from above, followed by smoke and a burning smell. The boy reassures her that it's just his mentor in the lab, and even pats her head to comfort her. Okay, I know her brand is being a puppy, but I don't think you need to go that far. Back at the palace, Prince Kulhan has received a letter stating the whereabouts of Kang Haji. He demands a map and immediately pinpoints her location, though he's very confused as to what she's doing in the Rat Village forest. I don't know if it's luck on her part or a clever choice from the bear boy, but cats avoid that forest like the plague. they just feel really unpleasant when they get near it, though no one knows why. As a result, the cats know very little about the area, which makes it a perfect place to hide from them. Clearly, the cogs are turning in the older prince's head. He suggests that Kil-han forget the whole fiancé incident and just leave her alone. After all, she did save his life in the human world. Kil-han doesn't take that well at all, which makes me hate him even more. He denies that he needed saving, but we all saw what happened. He was about to be squished by a 20-ton truck. How arrogant do you have to be to ignore that? While he's ranting about how he doesn't owe Haji anything, Kil-han suddenly remembers why he recognized the boy in the chasm. His name is Kang Hee-woong, and now that he remembers him, he seems even more determined to combat his instincts and head into the forest to corner them. Back at the apothecary, Haji has been helping out for a few months. Damn! I guess she's just completely forgotten about Jimin's dying mom? Maybe dogs have bad memories, cause I'm not sure how something that urgent could just slip your mind. Even though she doesn't have much of a reason to hang around, who could say no to living with a super strong bear boy in the middle of the woods? It's literally the plot of a rom-com, if you forget about the murderous cat on their tail. All the while, they've been putting up with the mad scientist responsible for pretty frequent explosions. She's another apprentice to the guy who used to work in the palace, a hybrid bunny girl who barely reaches their hips. Though she looks a little creepy, she's mostly harmless. Other than occasionally slipping their mentor's potions into Haji's bathwater just to see what they do. Actually, the potion only made her hair grow super long, and who could complain about that? Apparently, Haji could. She wants to find the antidote as soon as possible, even if that means going out and preparing all the ingredients herself. In the middle of their preparations, they're interrupted by a knock on the door, announcing an unexpected visitor. I wonder who that could be. If you're thinking it's Kil-han, you're wrong, thankfully. It's Jimin. Poor kid probably came to check she was still alive after she took on the quest to save his mother and then just disappeared for months. Seriously, how is everyone so chill about that? By some small miracle, his mother has been feeling better, no thanks to Haji. They go for a little walk together, ignoring the danger that being outside the forest places her in, because, say it with me, she's too naive for her own good. Despite the danger, Haji enjoys being out of the forest for a little while. She starts rambling about how much happier she is in this world than her home, and how she's been studying about the cat kingdom. She even says she's still determined to steal the medicine from Kil-han, at which point, Jimin looks incredibly guilty. Oh no, what has he done? Jimin suddenly starts to apologize, which is always a red flag. Run, Haji, run! Before she can take so much as a step, the prince has arrived. Clearly, Jimin lured her to be captured, maybe in exchange for the medicine? Is it bad that I don't blame him? She's literally been off in the forest playing with herbs and potions while his mom was dying. Poor kid probably didn't have a choice. Haji also tells him not to worry, knowing he must have had his reasons. It really takes a special kind of person to look your traitor in the eye and still smile like that. Kil-han also seems surprised at her response. She's clearly changed since they last met and is more confident in front of him, even though he might drag her away to a prison cell for the rest of her life. Honestly, I don't know how she stays so calm. If it were me, I'd definitely have swung a punch and made her run for it by now. Despite her bravado, Kil-han warns her that she'll never be able to return to the human world. He's on a mission to eradicate everyone who knows about the other world because, apparently, that's just the law. Sounds messed up to me. Before he can bring her in, however, Kil-han suddenly changes. He steps closer to her, leaning down as he whispers her name. For a moment, it seems like they're going to kiss. But then he starts to shake. She seems to be having some kind of effect on him, and I think he kind of likes it. Jimin sprints back to the apothecary to fetch the others, asking for their help. Only the artists know what happened then, but the next thing we see is Kil-han and Haji arriving at the palace together on horseback. The guards are shocked to see him sharing a saddle, since he's not exactly the type to get close with a girl, especially not one he called a mongrel only a few months ago. They also notice that he looks really pale, but he just barges past them to the gate, leaving Haji on the horse like a spare part. What on earth did she do to end up back here with him? I am so confused. But whatever happened, Haji still won't go easy. He can't just execute her without no reason. The guards, however, don't seem to care for human rights or know anything about the law, so maybe that's not the best approach. In the end, the guards can't handle the responsibility of looking after her. Somehow, it goes all the way up the chain to Kwi-han, who decides to take matters into his own hands. Do we trust this guy? I don't know if anyone related to Kul-han can really be a good person. Anyway, Kwi-han reveals that his brother has been in pretty poor health. He's not eating, and the doctors haven't been allowed to examine him because he's just that stubborn. Kwi-han suspects he's not ill, but probably just hiding out while he gets his head straight. He and his assistant are taking a walk around the palace when Haji bumps into them. She was hanging around the guards trying to eavesdrop. They only noticed her because they picked up on the strange scent she's been carrying ever since the forest, when she took that hair-enhancing potion. Haji can only smell something weird, but the guards literally start salivating. Ew! The smell makes them all giggly and happy, so instead of waiting for them to start licking her or something, she ran away and ended up bumping into the eldest prince. Unlike his assistant and just about everyone in his kingdom, Kwi-han is very polite. He sends his assistant off to deliver a message to his brother and the guards, announcing that Haji will be isolated from the rest of the palace. Wait, is he just going to put her straight back in the dungeon? It gets even creepier when Kwi-han grabs her hair and takes a big old sniff. He seems to have a theory about the smell that's driving everyone crazy. Everyone except him, it seems. After acting like a total weirdo, he announces that they'll be going to visit her place of isolation, which sounds absolutely terrifying. Everyone is being very secretive about what this place actually is. Even Kul-han has some reservations about keeping her there. His brother asks if he disapproves of the decision, but it seems a little more complex than that. In fact, the evil prince's heart seems to have warmed to their resident puppy. Kwi-han goes so far as to suggest he fell for her at first sight. Now, I don't know about that. Remember that on their actual first sight, he called her a filthy mongrel and locked her in a cell? If that's love, then he's even more twisted than I thought. Kul-han denies it too, but something has definitely shifted between them. He admits that it's something to do with her scent. He can't get it out of his head. It's driving him crazy. He seems to think it's some kind of illness, but Kwi-han just calls him a pervert. Which, I mean, is he wrong? There's something sick and twisted in that head of his. After their little chat, Kwi-han is caught in the hallway by a messenger, a student of the royal apothecary. It seems like he's been up to something fishy. He's been inquiring about brewing some kind of potion with ingredients so rare it's almost impossible to make. And it's forbidden. There's some effect on cats that has made it outlawed in the kingdom. Whatever he's been up to, it sounds mysterious. Meanwhile, Haji has been living it up in isolation. Kwi-han landed her in a pretty cushy room, provided her with clothes, and even sent his assistant to check up on her. The only hitch is that she really is isolated. She can't leave in case she runs into Kul-han and he goes mad with a desire or something. I don't really know what that evil boy would do. Either way, they can't keep her locked up forever. Being alone for so long has made Haji uneasy. She starts thinking about poor Jimin and how he's faring without her. Screw Jimin. I want to know about Kang Hee-woong. I say bring the bear back. While she's looking out the window, Haji spies a lady with red hair running through the gardens. Even from behind, it reminds her of Minju. But how the heck could she have ended up in this world? Haji sprints to the door only to find it locked, but she's determined to go out and confirm her suspicions. So determined that she would even jump out a second-story window. Predictably, she hits a branch on her way down and falls rather ungracefully to the ground. She gets right back to her mission, exploring the grounds of this estate she's been locked in, right next to the main palace grounds. Using the familiar scent, she turns a corner to find none other than Minju, dressed like one of the Cat Kingdom members and talking to none other than Prince Kul-han. He catches a glance of her, so she sprints away before she can hear what they were talking about. What she did pick up on is that the two of them seem to be on good terms. I find that heavily suspicious, but as usual, Haji just assumes the best and guesses that Minju fell into this world by accident, just like her. Oh, sweet Haji. I really thought we got past this. As she's walking back to the estate, she stumbles upon Jimin, being picked on by two of the guards. Without even thinking, Haji slams into one of them with her back, which is maybe the most awkward way I've ever seen a guard be taken out. But what is Jimin doing in the palace? And more importantly, how do Kul-han and Minju know each other? As usual, Haji is her bubbly self, completely ignoring the fact that she just spine-tackled a guard into the ground. While he's groaning in pain, the other guard scolds him for being beaten so easily. He clearly has no idea who Haji is or how she even got there. She's just introducing herself when she turns to find Prince Kyohan, just short of standing there watching her. He really can't stay away, can he? As it happens, he and Minju carried on their conversation by the pavilion, where she implored him to set an official date for their engagement. What? How come they're engaged? If I wasn't suspicious of her character before, I sure am now. But Kyohan didn't seem particularly keen to speed up whatever agreement they had between them. He just acted his usual rude self and walked off, leaving Minju calling after him desperately. Somewhere between then and now, he stumbled into Haji. Although, if you ask me, it's more likely he caught her scent and came running. This guy is literally obsessed with her. The guards and Jimin are terrified the moment Kyohan steps onto the scene. But Haji is different. Like a true girl boss, she walks right up to him and points a finger at the guard, asking him to punish them for hurting Jimin. The guards are already laughing because the old Kyohan wouldn't care one bit what a little puppy girl asked of him. But the new Kyohan is ruthless and immediately scolds them for touching something that belongs to the royal family. By the way, he's talking about Jimin. He literally just called Jimin an object, one of his possessions. So even if he's got nicer, he's still a first-rate douche. Haji notices the difference too, though she doesn't have much time to appreciate it before he is back to calling her an ungrateful pest. Suddenly, remembering Minju, she cuts off his dull speech about gratitude and punishment to ask about her friend. Kyohan doesn't recognize that name, but she's desperate. She grabs him, so focused on demanding an answer that she accidentally pushes them both into the fountain. If it were me, I'd be majorly embarrassed, especially with their little audience watching. But Haji doesn't know the meaning of the word shame. Actually, she's shamelessly staring into his eyes, trying to figure out where she's seen them before. Wait, does she not realize he's the cat? Are you serious? Haji, babe, I don't know if I can keep defending you. It has literally taken her all this time to realize that Kyohan is the cat she saved, as if the eyes weren't a dead giveaway. Kyohan is already preparing to brush her off and tell her he didn't need help, but true to her nature, Haji is just glad to see that he ended up all right. I guess since she woke up in this world, she never knew whether the cat was actually safe or not. But the prince isn't feeling quite as sentimental. He scolds her, saying that if he hadn't teleported them out of the road, Haji would have died. He's holding her by her shoulders, and while everyone else is gearing up for him to throw her like a rocket, sweet, innocent Haji is just enjoying the view. Though she's not the only one. Unbeknownst to the others, Minju is watching from the sidelines. I bet she's already coming up with a plan to get Haji out of the picture so that she can have the prince all to herself. When she's back at the estate, Kwehan's assistant attempts to explain the mess of a legal system they have in the Cat Kingdom and why Haji is in so much trouble. Going over to the human world is considered a first-class crime because it threatens the existence of the kingdom. At the moment, the only people who know the whole situation and Haji's involvement with Jimin are the two princes. Kwehan's assistant seems to believe her master will keep his brother in check. Everyone can tell she's a good person at heart, so Kwehan won't let her be punished too severely. But she did still commit a crime, so the assistant asks her to be patient and bear with her isolation a little longer. After all, shoving her number one enemy in a fountain is really not the way to get her sentence lifted. At least, that's what the assistant thinks. If it were up to me, I'd tell her to keep pushing, girl. The prince seems to like it. That night, Haji is lying awake when she hears footsteps outside her bedroom. She takes a peep through her door to find Kwehan standing in the corridor like an NPC. Apparently, he came to visit, but didn't realize how late it was and assumed she was asleep. Haji thinks he came to tell her off, so she apologizes for pushing his brother into the fountain. Kwehan hadn't heard yet, but he laughs his butt off when she admits what happened. He makes a comment about how the effects of the potion haven't worn off yet, pointing to her hair. He figured out the truth because he knew the man who made the potion, presumably He Woong's mentor, the old apothecary master. He reveals that an ingredient in that potion seduces people. That's why he's had Haji locked up in the estate and tried to keep her away from his brother. But if it's so seductive, how come Kwehan isn't drooling all over her like the others? As it turns out, the potion affects some people more than others. Kyulhan is especially prone, while his elder brother has a tolerance for it. While they're talking, Kwihan spots a sudden flash from outside the window. He reacts with lightning-fast instincts, covering Haji as something flies through the window, just scraping his arm. Haji turns to see an arrow lodged in the wall. Someone tried to kill her. Actually, Haji seems to think it was aimed at Kwihan, but I'd bet my life that arrow had something to do with Minju. She's so sneaky. I wouldn't be surprised if she was from the Fox Kingdom. Though the arrow only left a flesh wound, it's not long before Kwihan starts to feel weak. The arrow must have been poisoned. He passes out in the hallway, where his assistant is desperately clutching him when Kyulhan appears. Because he's literally the world's biggest jerk, his first response is to scold Kwihan's assistant for lying there instead of running for help. He doesn't even look especially worried for his brother. Actually, his attention has been snagged by a familiar scent on the scene, one he could pick up anywhere. Haji, meanwhile, is back in her bedroom with no idea of what Kwihan is going through outside. Now that she knows about the potion, she's more worried about what happens when it wears off. Will Kyulhan go back to wanting her dead when he's no longer seduced by her? She falls asleep, thinking herself safe for the time being. Little does she know, a certain black cat has just landed on her windowsill. Oh no, this is not gonna be good. She wakes up and freaks out. I mean, who wouldn't if that guy was standing over your bed? At first, she thinks it's a dream and flops back on her pillow. I don't know how, but she literally falls straight asleep, so Kyulhan picks her up and carries her over to the window. Thank goodness Haji woke up before he could do anything nasty, like throw her outside. He tells her what happened to his brother and says she has to come with him somewhere. Thanks, Kyulhan. Irritatingly vague as always. They arrive in Kwihan's chambers, where his assistant tells him he's been treated. They're trying to prepare an antidote, but the poison hasn't been completely neutralized yet. Time is running out, and they're not sure they'll be able to produce it fast enough. They need to find an expert, one who might already have an antidote for something like this. I have a feeling we might finally be about to meet the mysterious potion master we've heard so much about. Haji offers her help, so she and Kyulhan mount a horse and start riding through the forest. They've been sent to retrieve the ex-director of the royal apothecary, the mentor who coached Hee-woong. But obviously, in a crisis, Haji and Kyulhan aren't exactly the dream team. They can't seem to figure out whether they love or hate each other, and putting them in a situation where they need to hold tight to one another? Well, the prince seems to be enjoying it. To cover his desire, Kyulhan acts extra mean, yelling at her not to touch him. Thankfully, they've arrived. So we're safe from any more romantic tension for approximately 2 more panels, since Haji is going in by herself. She reassures the prince that his brother will be fine, and he rides off back to the palace with a little smile. Wait, a smile? As in, maybe the first smile we've seen all series? Oh, this kitty is down bad. At the apothecary, Hee-woong comes rushing to the door, delighted to see Haji again. He thinks she's escaped and tries to get her inside, but there's no time for a catch-up. She immediately asks for his tutor, but he still hasn't returned from his travels. Hee-woong agrees to go in his place. Even though he hates the palace, he's too good a person to let a man die without trying to save him. See? I told you. Bear Boy is endgame. Let's forget about Kyulhan. He grabs his ingredients and they speed off to the palace straight away. Kyulhan sees them return and is surprised that Hee-woong volunteered to walk into the palace. He tells Haji the apothecary master would never have come, even if he was at the forest house, because he left his station at the palace after being sentenced to execution for the crime of poisoning the late king. Whoa, then this goes deep. There's clearly some history between Hee-woong and Kyulhan too, since they both recognize each other and grew up in the palace. I can't believe the prince was willing to let his mentor return if they really thought he'd killed his father. Oh, and by the way, I know we've said it before, but what is it with this legal system? Do they only know how to sentence people to death? Does no one ever get, like, community service or anything? Anyway, when Hee-woong conducts his initial examination, he seems worried. Not even his mentor would have been able to cure Kwihan. Because there's nothing to cure. Yes, that's right. He faked it, folks. As it turns out, the arrow that slashed him did have a poison on it, so the fainting was real. but he's resistant to that particular poison. I guess when you're first in line to the throne, you could build up an immunity from all the assassination attempts. He decided instead to use this opportunity to help Haji. Kwi-han acts very suspicious and doesn't give a lot of details, but he asks for Hee-woong's help to see his plan through to the end. I have no idea what any of that means or if it's good or bad for Haji, but I can't complain now that Hee-woong is back in the picture. The next morning, it's announced that the prince has fully recovered. He summons Haji to his chambers, so Hee-woong walks her over, assuring her she's not in trouble. He's decided to stay in the palace a little longer, and when Haji asks him why, he just says, "You." Does anyone else have major butterflies? Actually, he was interrupted by a passing noble lady who stops to chat to them in the hallway. Can you guess who it is? A woman who has appeared at just the perfect moment to shake things up again? That's right, it's Minju. Somehow, she has the nerve to greet Hee-woong and completely ignores Haji. Actually, it's worse than that. She's super flirty with Bear Boy and gives Haji major side-eye. Of course, now Haji is questioning herself. Maybe that wasn't really Minju? She's certainly acting very different to the girl she knew in the human world. After a brief and very formal conversation, she passes on. Hee-woong escorts her to Kwi-han's chambers, where she walks in to find an entire staff of maids and butlers waiting for her. They call her Lady Haji. They bow to her. One of the butlers even drops to his knees to polish some dust off her shoes. Well, it's about time someone showed her an ounce of respect. Once she's past the army of servants, Haji gets to the prince himself, who addresses her formally and immediately gets very up close and friendly. He finds it amusing that she's so thrown by all the servants bowing and scraping at her feet. After all, she had a role in saving his life. It's only natural they would treat her like royalty. From now on, she'll be allowed to roam freely around the palace, though he does warn her to avoid strangers. Haji admits she already met one, that girl who looks like Minju. Kwi-han's assistant reveals she's the Duke's daughter. That's why she was so standoffish. Still smells fishy to me, but as usual, Haji is completely unfazed. She asks after Jimin and is quickly told she can see him whenever she wants. I guess there are a lot of perks to her new status. When they meet, Jimin is all new and shiny too. For some reason, they've given him the position of Prince Kyo-han's assistant. It's a pretty high status for a criminal, so it is pretty shocking that he managed to climb all that way to the top. Jimin tells the story of how, after she left the rat village, Kyo-han paid his family home a visit and offered him a deal. He wouldn't give back the medicine, but he would send an apothecary to treat Jimin's mother and lift his execution sentence. In return, Jimin became his aide. That's why he sold her out, after all, when she was staying in the forest. He apologizes for all the times he's put her in danger, and there have been a lot of times. But good old Haji doesn't care. She's just happy they're both safe and sound. Though it does surprise her that someone as vicious as Kyo-han would want to keep a criminal as his assistant. Maybe he just wants to keep an eye on him, but that doesn't seem like the prince we first met. Before they can talk anymore, Jimin rushes off to attend to his duties, leaving Haji to wander in the garden. She's so absorbed in her thoughts that she quickly gets lost. Following her nose, as usual, she ends up in the kitchens, where the staff greet her warmly as the savior of their prince. They offer her a little bag of cookies as a snack, so she leaves quietly, not wanting to get in the way of their dinner preparations. But she's just as lost after leaving the kitchens, and ends up in a grand ballroom with no scent to lead the way. It's no surprise that her sense of direction is so poor, since she's been in isolation all this time. But of course, the first person she bumps into is Kyo-han, swinging around the corner and straight into his arms. These two, they really have to stop meeting like this. Haji explains that she got lost, and he immediately calls her stupid. Every time he gets a whiff of her hair, he starts being rude to her. It must be his defense mechanism. Then, the craziest thing happens. He starts purring. He can't control himself around her scent. It just makes him so happy the sound comes out naturally. I can't tell if that's cute or kind of weird. Haji thinks it's adorable, and since cats have always hated her, she's super happy to hear one purring in real life for the first time. So happy that she forgets all about their history and dives straight in for a hug. Well, that's a line they haven't crossed so far. Kyo-han can hardly stand to be that close, so he yells at her and shoves her away. Haji quickly apologizes, but that just makes her look even cuter, just like a puppy dog. Desperate for a chance to change the subject, she asks if he's seen Jimin. Kyulhan is just as nasty a boss as he is a person, so he told his assistant to get back to work, though he does admit he was looking for her. He also admits that he's surprised the two of them are still friends, considering the whole betrayal thing. But Haji just takes that as a sign he's looking out for her and thanks him for the concern, brushing off his comments. And after all, he has no right to pass judgment. Jimin was literally just following his orders. How can he call him a traitor when he did what Kyulhan wanted? Haji then remembers that conversation with her mousy friend and brings up the human world, asking why it's such a dangerous secret. Immediately, Kyulhan is suspicious. He wants to know why she's so curious, but it's only natural since it's her world they're so wary of. It's where her family and her dogs live, so why is it this big, scary secret? Kyulhan points out that there aren't only good things about the human world, something that Haji knows better than anyone. Ever the optimist, she tells him she has more happy memories than bad ones, so it can't be all that bad. Really, Haji? I mean, we saw what you went through. Didn't look like there was a whole lot to be happy about, with all the bullying and attempts on her life. Kyulhan reacts really weirdly to that. He doesn't understand her response and suddenly gets close, reaching a hand up to her cheek. It looks like his resolve might finally have crumbled. That is until Kwihan walks in, interrupting what was sure to be a very steamy moment. He's come to deliver an invitation for Haji from a family called House Hei. She already recognizes the scent on the envelope. It's the girl who looks like Minju. She's inviting her to a little tea party, which sounds incredibly suspicious. Kyulhan also seems to have his reservations, but his brother stops him for some reason. Poor Haji just wants an answer as to why there's a girl who looks like, sounds like, and even smells like her best friend walking around this magical world. So of course, she says yes. She asks Kwihan for his formal permission to attend, and he agrees. It kind of looks like he never wanted her to meet the Minju lookalike in the first place, but since that plan has already fallen apart, he's not going to stop her now. He's pretty lax for the leader of a kingdom, huh? Then, out of nowhere, Kyulhan announces he'll escort her. Is this Minju copy really that dangerous? Or does this prince not want his two lady loves mixing without him around? Either way, I smell trouble. Mark my words, something is going to go down at this tea party. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!